Welcome to the Irishman, Englishman and Scotsman Football Podcast. Hello, and you're very welcome to another episode of the Irishman, Englishman and Scotsman Football Podcast. My name is JP. I'm joined by the regulars Fino, Kevin and Joe, who is the newest addition to our podcast. What a weekend of football. Controversy, handballs, goals, mayonnaise, elbow. I don't know where to start.
I mean, I know where to start. I think,
burning question.
Yeah, a burning question. That's the way to put it. I think Liverpool have shown in the last few games that they're carrying on the form from last season. I want to put it to you guys, have Liverpool already won the league?
I would love it if everyone else thought that. But yeah, 35 games to go. I mean, obviously, completely not and nowhere near. But I do think, like we talked on the show a few weeks ago, it was such a tricky start to the league for Liverpool that you looked at those fixtures, those three, and you thought, well, maybe after 3 games, they might even only have 1 point. They might have 3 points. They might have 4 points. The fact that they've got 9, I think will have a few people just going, oh, Christ, is this the way it's going? But no, obviously.
It's 2 of the top 4 contenders, shall we say, that they've taken 3 points from. And you've also seen City, United, Chelsea, Tottenham, etc. all drop points after either 3 or fewer games. I would have at least liked to have seen somebody like a Chelsea be already on the coattails, but already it seems like Liverpool are pacing away. So yeah, I'm wondering whether or not it's going to be like a Leicester or an Everton that are possibly their main kind of challengers.
I'd love to think that, Fino, but I honestly don't think so. I just think after 3 games, it's one of those that you shouldn't read. And in fact, for Man City, they've already lost points. That's true, but they've only played 2. Love to say it's all over, but no, not at all.
A long way to go. Just a quick look at the results from Sunday and Monday from the last time we spoke to you on the live show. Sheffield United 0, Leeds 1 in the Yorkshire Derby. Tottenham 1, Newcastle 1. Hugely controversial game, which will bring us back to the handball rule. Man City 2, Leicester 5. A crazy game. Had Kevin jumping around the pub. West Ham 4, Wolves 0. And then Monday night, last night, Fulham 0, Aston Villa 3. A result which kind of proves that spending money works for the promoted teams. Liverpool 3, Arsenal 1. Another controversial game. Fino, you watched a lot of the Yorkshire Derby.
Yeah, I watched a fair bit of it, and I think it was a great game of football. Both teams went after it, and both goalkeepers were in great form. And I think it was lucky to be 1-0, or unlucky, should I say, to be 1-0. And then there was the potential for lots of goals there. Sheffield United will feel a little aggrieved that they didn't come away with at least a point. But Leeds managed to make it count when they needed to make it count right at the death. And yeah, I think it was a great start to the weekend.
Yeah, and then the game at Tottenham. Tottenham 1, Newcastle 1. I mean, look, I'm absolutely delighted with the result. You had the last minute goal from Colin Wilson. As a Newcastle fan, I thought the game was gone. Spurs, the man of the match was the Newcastle goalkeeper. Spurs battered the Newcastle goal. I think Son hit the bar twice. But that, even though I'm so delighted that Newcastle got the point, it was never a penalty. This new rule is crazy. Andy Carroll headed the ball down. I think it was off Eric Dyer's arm, who wasn't even looking in the direction of the ball at 95, 96 minutes. And then all of a sudden, Tottenham Newcastle get the penalty, and yeah, it's bonkers.
I don't know. Man of the match was probably the FIFA interpretation of the handball, or wasn't it?
Well, see, this is the thing. Is like I agree that the rule should be looked at. Of course, I do. But it's been this rule in La Liga and Serie A for the last season, and nobody in the British press has talked about it. But yeah, as soon as it comes in the Premier League, and as soon as it starts to quote unquote ruin football, everyone's up in arms. And yeah, in last season, I think in Spain and Italy, there was like 2 or 3 times the number of penalties for handball than there were in the Premier League. But it might feel odd at the moment, but sooner or later, players will adjust. You've already seen Mourinho's instilled it into his players that hands are behind their back at all times. And this kind of what I liken to Brexit-like kind of bleating, saying we're English football, we're the best, and we don't like it, so it needs to go. I think it's just a bit of a weird stance from pundits, especially as it's been in for so long in other European countries.
Listen, no one's more prepared to slag off the Little Englandism of the Premier League press pack. But honestly, maybe, but I think it's just, they are noticing it for the first time. That's true. I hadn't thought about that now for the first time they're sort of saying, listen to us, because now it affects us. But I just think, they've just noticed it for the first time, and they've noticed, like everyone else, that it's horrific, it's horrendous, ridiculous. I don't know if it's ruining football. It's making for more controversy, which is usually a good thing, actually. But it is absurd.
But it's going to contribute in essentially more goals.
Yeah,
If there's more
definitely.
penalties, more handballs, etc., so we'll, people complain about the nil-nils. There'll be a lot less of those. It's going to take a while to get used to, like the VAR, for example, but we're kind of settled into VAR now. And this handball thing, I think in 6 months' time, we'll move on. We'll be fine with it.
Do you know what, though, JP? That's the saddest thing of all, because you're right. You're absolutely right. We'll all be fine with it, and we'll all be saying that's absolutely fine, like we were with every other ridiculous rule, like, I don't know, no back passes.
The back
That was
pass,
40 years ago or something like that. But even so, you're absolutely right. We'll get used to it like we get used to everything else.
I think the main issue is that people don't know the rule, and there's not really been the efforts to educate anyone on the rule going into the new season. I mean, there was a little bit about below the edge of the sleeve, and that was going to be a handball. But really, if your arms are out in an unnatural position and it hits your hand, shouldn't it be a penalty regardless of intent?
No.
I'll just quickly run through this again. Basically, folks, if you're not really sure what the rule is, we did speak about it on the live show on Sunday. If you weren't listening, this is a refresher. Under these new rules, which came in at the start of the season, a player will be penalised for handball if the hand or arm is clearly away from the body and outside the body line. The player clearly leans into the path of the ball travels some distance, the ball touches a hand, arm that is clearly raised above the shoulder, the player falls and the hand or arm is extended laterally or vertically away from the body. A deflection clearly makes no difference to the ball touching a hand or arm that is clearly extended away from the body and or above the shoulder. It's very complicated rules in a simple game. Now, I know, like I said, Kev, we will get used to it, but I think it's going to take a bit longer than we hope.
Yeah. Like you say, complicated rule for what should be a simple game. And I'm an old-fashioned sort of person, and I do think that the beauty of football is that simplicity that you can explain it. You don't need to be a fan. Right? Anyone can sit down in front of a game of football and be hooked immediately. We all know that, right? Because it happened to us when we were kids. It happens to our kids. It happens to everyone who watches a game of football. So I think anything that really detracts from that simplicity is always a bit suspect. And I just think that this one is particularly so. So a bit of a shame from my point of view. But the only other thing I'd say is sometimes it takes an artist, sometimes it takes a poet to express things in a way that will really change the minds of those in charge. If only we had one. But anyway, that's a question for another time.
He might be giving you a clue of something we're having later on in the show. Man City 2, Leicester 5. Man City, there's a big talk about their defence. I'll go into that later on. I really think they need a striker. Both of the main guys are out. And why not take a punt on Danny Ings, Joe? Would he go?
I don't think he will go. I think he's a Southampton boy. He was born in Southampton. He's very, very happy here. He's just broken into the England squad as well. I think he's had his big chance at a big club. He went to Liverpool. It didn't quite work out. He suffered a really bad injury. He's now come home to Southampton. Last year, he scored 25 goals. This year, he's already 3-3. So he's kind of kicked on where he left off. I don't think he would like to leave. I know Tottenham did make an inquiry this summer as to whether he was available, and it was a straight no from Southampton. So maybe I'm just being, an optimist, but I don't think he's going to be leaving anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, I hope you're right, actually, because, you look at that Burnley-Southampton game and who was the difference between those two, and I think it would be disastrous for Southampton.
I think he's been the difference between Southampton and a lot of teams since the back end of last season when they turned things around and the start of this season. Obviously, there's a lot of people like Shane Long gets on. He's the foil. He runs his stocks off from him as well. But Hasenhüttl really has Danny Ings playing out of his skin. Man City need players. There's, 2 days left in the transfer window?
Yeah, they need players.
Yeah.
I mean, they've only spent, $500 million. So.
Okay, here's an interesting stat for you. Now, they've just signed Ruben Diaz for £65 million, a defender from Benfica. But since Pep arrived in 2016, they spent over £400 million on defenders alone. But I don't think it's the defenders or the quality. I think it's just the style. Because sometimes they play 8 men in attack. And regardless if you have Franco Baresi and Ruud Gullit back there, if you're playing against the likes of 2 or 3 guys on the a Vardy or a Madison in attack, you're outnumbered, you're going to get destroyed every time. Now, for Man City, that's a successful way of playing for the last couple of seasons, and they're great to watch. But, Yeah, I definitely think they'll be in the transfer market in the next couple of days.
When you look at Man City, your immediate thoughts in the recent past have been about company. And, they have brought in players to play alongside him rather than to have two standalone centre-backs that are having to potentially chop and change. I was watching Match of the Day and Darren Fletcher was talking about how it's clear that Pep doesn't believe in his centre-backs because he's playing two players in defensive midfield when he usually is setting up his Barcelona teams, his Bayern teams with one defensive midfielder that can cover both centre-backs. Now they're playing with two defensive midfielders. It's clear that something needs to change in the defence, and as you say, they've really only got Rory Delap's son up front, 17 years old. It's not an ideal situation.
I wonder if he can throw a ball like his dad.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Man City will be hoping so.
Yeah, I didn't see this one, Fino, but I'm sure you did. West Ham 4, Wolves 0.
Yeah, I didn't see it coming, put it that way.
No one did.
But no, I think West Ham looked really good value for their win. We played well, we were clinical, we took the chances when we had them, and actually there were a few chances which probably should have gone in. Fornals had one in the first half, and Jared Bowen had one in the second, which would have meant that he would have got his hat-trick. Really pleasing. It's a little bit of a weird one that, our first points of the season come when Moyes is miles away in his home quarantining.
Do we call that a bittersweet victory for David Moyes?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Does Alan Irvine become the de facto manager of West Ham now? Do we just let him be permanently quarantined away from the West Ham team? No, look, I think West Ham showed enough in that game against a really good Wolves team that have been playing well to hopefully show enough to stay up, but it really all depends on how Chelsea approach this Declan Rice transfer saga.
Well, if Liverpool are champions after 3 games, are Wolves in crisis after 3 games?
No, look, I mean, Man City. The game against Man City was pretty good. Was pretty good going. I think Wolves are definitely in a good spot. I just think the Liverpool are showing some immense consistency already, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them romp at home.
From your lips to God's ears, as the
well,
the expression says.
let's hope not. From the neutrals' point of view, Joe, you agree? Yeah,
completely. There's only been 3 games gone. There's still a long, long way to go. And I remember even last year, Liverpool fans, even when they were 20 points ahead, the Liverpool fans, like Kev was saying, it's not done yet. So there's still a long way to go.
I think it is true though that that ability, as we've talked about quite a lot, to just get a result somehow. Is so kind of self-perpetuating almost, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And the brilliant thing about Liverpool start is I think everyone who watched them in pre-season maybe certainly watched them towards the end of last year. We talked about how bad the defence was at the end of last year. Maybe even watched in pre-season where there were some like weird results going, falling 2-0 behind against people like Blackpool, I think it was, before they went on to win. Then the Community Shield, then that weird game against Leeds. But then somehow it all seemed to click against Chelsea, where they just seem to be back on it. And I think whatever you think, however the game went in the end last night against Arsenal, there was really the way they played in the first half really was exceptional, right? It was really beautiful at times. I think. Sorry to wax lyrical, but I just sort of think it was absolutely back to as good as it can be, honestly. And I think that if there's one thing that's like maybe a little bit worrying for the rest of the Premier League is that they've clicked back into that rhythm, and that must be concerning a little bit.
Plus the scary signings as well last week. Alcantara, Diego Jota, just wow. I mean, 2 guys to get. If you're Man United, if you're somebody else, think of why didn't we sign them?
100%. But you looked at Liverpool last night and they went 1-0 down, and actually what I saw was anger more than anything. It wasn't, we've gone 1-0 down to a really good team. It was, this doesn't happen at Anfield. This needs to be rectified. And you saw that they immediately responded, and they looked annoyed at the fact that they'd gone 1-0 down. And I hate to say it, but it does look like the sign of champions. It's, as you say, that self-fulfilling kind of thing that comes with winning consistently.
I thought the lovely thing was Robbo. So Robbo makes that mistake that leads to the goal, and then what was it about? 10 minutes later, he's down at the other end, finishing, which is very rare for him, but to stick in a goal, and also a goal that was an assist from Trent Alexander-Arnold as well. And seriously, he was back in form last night. There's a player who has not been at his best for a long time. Last night, Trent was fantastic.
Lacazette will be kicking himself. He had a really good chance to level things up at 2-1 though. So Arsenal, I think, are still going to do okay this season, regardless whether they they won or lost last night. In the other game last night, Fulham 0, Aston Villa 3. Fulham, who we tipped to go down. Aston Villa, good away win. They spent wisely. Jack Grealish is staying. I think they're going to be okay.
They must be buzzing at Villa.
Yeah.
100%ers, everything looking good. They've got an interesting fixture coming up, which I'm sure we'll get onto. And who wouldn't be a Villa fan right now? Fantastic.
Indeed. Looking ahead to the weekend on Saturday, these are Central European times for our listeners in the UK and Ireland. So 1:30, Chelsea host Crystal Palace. At 4 p.m, Everton play Brighton. In the evening game, it's the mighty Leeds United at 6:30 against Man City. And the late game at 9 p.m, Newcastle host Burnley. Chelsea really need to win this game.
Yeah, it's a must win. And you do wonder whether or not they're just going to throw Mendy to the lions in some way and just put him straight between the sticks. I know that they're talking about putting him in for the Tottenham League Cup game. I think the way that Chelsea performed against West Brom, it's a tough time for Frank Lampard to know how to really galvanise that team. Okay, they brought it back, but it's really not looking good, especially at the back, and you have to hope that Chilwell's able to really galvanise that defence.
But in a way, like how we spoke about on Sunday about Fernandez's late penalty for Man United, and sometimes snatching a victory, from the jaws of defeat can inspire a team. That might do the same for Chelsea. A 3-0 down at half-time. Like I said, at the weekend, Lampard's come out and he's gone, right, try and win the second half. They've almost won the game.
I think the big question then is, do you play the big signings, or do you stick with the academy products that got you that result against West Brom? If that result has galvanised and brought that team together, do you keep Hudson-Odoi, Abraham up top, and do you drop Werner?
Yes.
Which is that's a very controversial decision.
Well, that's what you do. That's what you do. But if your boss was this multi-billionaire or whatever he is, who's spent all this money on these players, I'm not sure it'd be such an easy
You must play Werner or you will die. Chelsea Palace.
But hang on a minute. But before we go on, though, what about Palace, though? Because Palace will probably feel pretty hard done by. Roy Hodgson Mr. Roy was certainly very annoyed after that result. I mean, how did they come back from that? Because they'd made that good start. They still look really good, don't they?
Yeah, I think they'll be fine.
It's not a gimme for Chelsea, that game, at all.
Not in the slightest. No, I think so. And as you say, I think they'll be reeling from that penalty incident against Everton. I think they look decent enough, but I would expect a far greater reaction from Chelsea than from Palace. And for them to come through and win. Everton
v Brighton at 4 p.m. Tabletoppers Everton, with their super coach and super new signings, look really good so far.
Yeah, potential for me, the underrated game of the season so far. I think there'll be goals. I think it will be a great, fluid game of football to watch. Everton are good to watch at the moment. Brighton are great to watch at the moment. And both will want to go after it and grab the points. Brighton, I think, looked really good against United. Okay, they lost the penalty in the dying seconds. Potter has them playing some great football, some really fluid stuff. I think they look really dangerous. Yeah, I think Brighton will give them a game, but I'll go for an Everton win. And it's great for the Premier League and for Liverpool that there is two teams in the city winning, I suppose. Would you agree, Kev?
Yeah, I mean, I would actually. Yeah, I've got no problem with that. The only thing I'd say is, I agree with Fino there. The Brighton are really lovely to watch actually, and I think it is going to be a really good game. And you saw them hit the bar and the post a combination of 5 or 6 times in that United game. But more to the point, it was the ball to feet. Not being prepared to take on the opposition, particularly in midfield, playing it out from the back, like lovely to watch. Honestly, good luck to them. I hope that's an absolute belter, and I'd love to see Brighton have the sort of season where they can play that football all the way through and not have to be sort of dragged back, to being more defensive and more pragmatic.
Leeds and City 6:30. Leeds ran Liverpool very close in an amazing game on the opening day, 4-3, then won 4-3, and the late win in the Yorkshire Derby with a goal from Patrick Bamford. They'll be buzzing when Man City come to town with all their injuries. This one could be a bit closer than we think, Joe.
Yeah, I think this is one of those games that you just wish that there were fans in the stadium. Can you imagine a full packed Ellen Road for Leeds against Man City? It would be incredible. Leeds have been scoring goals, but they've been letting in a lot of goals as well. So you would expect Man City, even without Aguero, to at least score a couple in that game. But yeah, Leeds, I've been really, really impressed with them so far. But I think Man City may be really, really angry after that 5-2 defeat to Leicester. I expect them to come out all guns blazing and get the result.
It's going to be an interesting meeting of the two coaches as well, right?
Bielsa and Pep, indeed, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I think apparently Guardiola is absolutely obsessed with the way that Bielsa thinks and how he uses football or open play in football almost like set pieces, that they have different passages of play, even within open play, to really open teams up. And I remember reading something about Javi Martinez, the Bayern player who played for Bielsa and Guardiola, played for Bielsa under at Bilbao, and he was saying that Pep would constantly pester him to understand how Bielsa would approach a certain situation, a certain tactical situation. How would he deal with this player? And I think even when Bilbao played Barcelona, a lot of people talked about this kind of the coming together of these two brilliant football minds. So yeah, tactically you hope that this is a really incredible game, and yeah, hope for goals.
Yeah, I think Man City are going to shock the world of football in the next 24 hours and sign a superstar. But I don't think he'll be fit or ready to play on Saturday, and I'm going to go for a blood and guts, glory, Leeds United win.
That would be extraordinary. I would love to see that for all sorts of reasons, mostly because it would put City 2 defeats behind Liverpool. No, but yeah, I mean, amazing. They've been glorious, haven't they? I mean, I didn't get to see the 1-0, but you were saying like it was a genuinely like interesting game of football, right, Fino? So everything that we hope for and more of a Leeds side, being back, and long may it continue.
I do think you're right, JP. I think Leeds, I would give them a better chance to take points from Man City than I did give them a chance against Liverpool. When I watched the highlights of the Man City game, they gave away 3 penalties, and 3 really stupid penalties. Kyle Walker threw Jamie Vardy to the ground. Their midfield need to have a bit more energy about them. They need to be able to track back. As I said, Kyle Walker looked so disinterested. He was jogging around the place. I really do wonder what's happening at the Etihad.
Kyle Walker, for all his pace and talent going forward, he has a real idiotic streak in him sometimes, and yeah, he is vulnerable. But like Joe was saying earlier on, imagine if the full crowd was there. I mean, Leeds United are going to give Man City no time on the ball, and if those fans were there, even less. And the electricity, they're going to give it everything. There's no respect for Man City coming to Ellen Road. And yeah, like I said, I'll go for a Leeds win. In the evening game, Newcastle against Burnley. Burnley pointless down at the bottom of the table. Newcastle started off with a great win at West Ham, then really disappointing against Brighton, equally disappointing against Tottenham, who outplayed them. But the result with Boyo Newcastle, Callum Wilson's second goal in the Premier League. I fancy Newcastle to take the points here. And Burnley, Sean Dyche has come out and said, look, the chairman knows we need to buy players. We need players. I expect Tarkowski to go tomorrow. I reckon he'll go to Leicester. Then they'll get funds, but then how late in the day is it to sign players?
Yeah, I think Newcastle were very lucky to escape with a point. Tottenham were all over them. Burnley, it's looking tough for them, and I think this Tarkowski saga is weighing a bit on them. There's this mysterious toe injury that Tarkowski suddenly managed to acquire, and all of a sudden he's now out of the team. So I do wonder behind the scenes at Burnley whether or not there's a bit of unrest.
Yeah, you're listening to the Irishman, Englishman and Scotsman Football Podcast. Don't forget, guys, if you're listening on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. Is really important. Spotify and, of course, all of our other media platforms you're listening. Just hit the like, hit the subscribe, so hit the follow. Sunday, Leicester, West Ham, 1 p.m. Central European time. Southampton, West Brom, 1 p.m. also. Arsenal, Sheffield United, 3 p.m. Wolves, Fulham, 3 p.m. Man U v Tottenham at 5:30, and the night game on Sunday is Aston Villa against Liverpool at 7:15. Joe, Southampton, West Brom.
It's actually a really big game for Southampton. In the past seasons, it hasn't been the big teams that Southampton have struggled against. It's been the teams that have come up from the Championship that we just haven't been able to break down, especially at home. When a team comes like West Brom and maybe park the bus in front of the goal. The win against Burnley was huge for the confidence of Southampton.
Big win, yeah.
They started the season with so much optimism, and then to lose the first 2 games in the manner that they did.
And not just those 2 games, but the cup game against Brentford as well, or Brentford B.
Yeah, so the League Cup, Brentford bought their B team to St Mary. Southampton played their first team and still lost 2-0.
Wow.
During which the fans were starting to get really, really concerned. But then, like I said, the win against Burnley was huge, and I fully expect us to replicate our form from the back end of last season when we were absolutely on fire. And I would expect us to beat West Brom fairly comfortably. at St Mary's.
I mean, West Brom, it's hard to know how they'll feel. They were 3-0 up against this brand new billionaire Chelsea team at the weekend, pegged back to 3-3. God knows what they're going to think. I'd fancy Southampton myself. Danny Ings, I'm sure, is worth a punt to get the first goal again. Leicester host West Ham. I'm not sure about West Ham this week, Fino.
Well, look, I mean, I've expected West Ham to lose every single game so far, and we're one win up, so that's something. But I do think there's so much danger in that Leicester team at the moment. Vardy looked really strong against Man City. I've already talked about Tielemans here on the podcast before. I would arguably say that this team is better than the Leicester team that won the league. They are great on the ball. They're fluid. Brendan Rodgers has them playing, through gritted teeth, I'll say it, some really nice football. And I just hope that West Ham are able to exploit a couple of Leicester's weaknesses, which are the set pieces. We saw against Man City the joy that they had from corners and free kicks. West Ham are good in the air. They've got players like Declan Rice and Souček who can really get up and get at the ball. So yeah, we'll see. I think it's an interesting tactical battle. I suppose it all depends on how well Alan Irvin's managed to drill in some tactics into the player on the training ground.
I think Leicester will take a lot of points off the big teams this season because they're designed. Brendan Rodgers has them designed to play on the break and to play to Jamie Vardy's strengths. So as soon as they get the ball against the run of play, boom, it's gone down the channels, hit Vardy, and then the likes of Maddison and co support. They're very impressive. If Tarkowski comes, they're pushing for top 4. Arsenal against Sheffield United, 3 p.m. Arsenal, I thought they were decent against Liverpool.
I thought they were decent, definitely. Again, as previews, really, wasn't it? Because Liverpool made that sort of start that everyone kind of expected them to say, and Arsenal actually had no problem sort of hanging on in there. Played absolutely true to their strength, played it out from the back, got the goal in exactly the manner that I'm sure they would, apart from the slightly weird assist from Robertson, I think it was exactly how they planned. I think, right up until that 1-0, they did everything they wanted to do. But it was interesting, wasn't it, to see them in the second half, that actually they were much more attacking. Had a lot more chances in that second half, but yeah, can they do it against a side that won't be attacking so much, or it's like it's less easy to predict than maybe that Liverpool side? I don't know. I think there was a lot to praise them for in that game, but still, in the end, they got done 3-1, which is about standard for Arsenal at Liverpool. So we're from here.
It'll be interesting to see how they perform, given that they also have to play Liverpool again this week. Yeah. Before they play Sheffield United in the League Cup. So those are 2 big games for Arsenal. Okay, probably a different team that's going to be out in the Carabao Cup, but I do think that they probably have enough to get over the line. Sheffield United, last season's darlings, this season's second season syndrome seems to really be kicking in.
It's gonna be second album syndrome. Yeah. It's gonna be awful if they're 0 points after 4.
No
games,
confidence, no points, and I think no chance at the Emirates.
Oh, that's sad.
Sorry, Kev. Also at 3 p.m. Wolves host Fulham. Wolves, I can't believe they got hammered by West Ham. Fulham are definitely going down the way things are going, unless they, sign a lot of players in the next 24 hours.
Is there a better team for Wolves to be playing after such a crushing
like they ordered
defeat?
It, right? The therapy.
Yeah, than Fulham to get the confidence up. I fear that Fulham are already the whipping boys of the Premier League.
They can't be that bad though, can they? They're not going to They're not going to lose all 38 games. So at some point, they've got to get better.
Who knows? No, I think Scott Parker's definitely facing an uphill battle, seemingly struggling to bring that team together to a Premier League level week in, week out.
Yeah, I think the word of the day for Arsenal and Wolves is bounce back ability. Cracker of a match at Old Trafford, 5:30 Sunday. Man United against Tottenham. Gareth Bale's not ready, is he?
No, he's still going to be in the stands. But I think this is another one where, if either team loses, both sets of fans are going to feel like they're in crisis mode. I think for Mourinho, it's probably going to be quite personal going up against United. We talked about on the live show the Guardiola 13 players and all this. Tottenham play 4 times in 3 competitions in less than a week this week. So that's tough on anybody. They played Newcastle, Chelsea tonight, Maccabi Haifa, and then Man United. And without Son now, who's done his hamstring, without Bale.
Son's out as well, is he?
Yeah.
Ooh.
So he's going to be out for a few weeks. It's going to be tough, but Manchester United again didn't look wonderful against Brighton. It will be interesting to see whether or not Dele Alli's brought in from the cold to face Man United, but it will be an interesting one, and I think it's too close to call.
I think in that United game against Brighton, I thought there were times where Man United looked fantastic going forward. I mentioned the other day, they scored 3, had 2 disallowed for fairly marginal offsides, I think. It always seemed to me like they were playing within themselves somehow, and I don't know what that is. They always seem to be able to take that fluid approach, because I think they can take people apart, and certainly on the break. My fear is that Mourinho's going to set up in a very, very defensive way, and that's going to be an awful game and super disappointing, and everyone's going to be going, oh, we've had our first 0-0 after our barring some dodgy, handball penalty or something like that. That's my fear. But actually, Man United should take them apart, I think. I think Man United have got so much going for them when they go forward. It's just obviously they're vulnerable in defence. We've talked about that, no question at all. But I'd just love to see them throw caution to the wind and just go forward, because they're beautiful when they pass it forward.
Kevin has just complimented Manchester United. Are you listening? I fancy Tottenham actually before this, but just from Fino's news now that Son is missing. He's such an influential player. 4 goals a couple of games ago. I mean, he took on Newcastle. Kane with the assist himself, more or less. And him missing is huge. I fancy Man United to do this one. What do you reckon, Joe?
It's a tough one, the Mourinho derby. I actually think Tottenham may do it. I don't think Man United are playing well enough this season yet. I know Son's out injured, but I think Harry Kane didn't score against Newcastle. I know he had a lot of chances. So I think this game he will score. Man United's defence is really, really, it's just not strong enough for me. Maguire's not playing well. Shaw left back, is he really good enough? For a Man United left back, I'm not sure. I think Man U haven't quite clicked yet, and I expect Tottenham to win that one.
Is Maguire still in Mykonos mentally? Who knows? God knows what effect that has on him. Yeah, I mean, he hasn't really performed since he come back. But yeah, it should be a very good game for me. It should be the game of the weekend if both of them go out. But like Kevin said, there's also that big chance that Mourinho will come out and park the bus and frustrate Man United and take a point away and be happy with that. The evening game, Aston Villa, who are very much in form against we've already won the league, Liverpool.
The worst thing about that, I mean, I've said quite a lot about Liverpool, said something about Villa as well. So I'm just going to say the worst thing about that is the kickoff time. Absolutely distraught. All of us sat here, we're on a curfew at 10 p.m. There's absolutely zero chance of us watching that down the pub. So disaster. Listen, Liverpool done pretty much everything right by hook or by crook this year, right? Villa look good. You would think Liverpool have too much for them, but just remember that game last year. What a game that was, where Liverpool 1-0 down. I can't remember how long left. It was almost nothing. Robertson gets the equaliser, I'm pretty sure. Mane heads in at a corner, gives them that 2-1 win. And it was that moment, I think, that Liverpool thought, and I don't mean the fans actually, I mean the team. I think the team thought we can come back and we can win any game. And at the same time, someone told me Liverpool practiced that a lot actually when they practice being 1-0 down with like 5 minutes to go. And that's one of their training drills. And actually they practice it 9 against 11, someone told me even, where the 9 are trying to come back to make it as hard for themselves as possible. So yeah, that sticks in my mind, that game last year, is that one where the team thought, we can really do this. There's nothing to stop us. So I think Villa have got a chance, but yeah, I suppose all things being equal, you'd expect Liverpool to win.
I mean, yeah, Villa are full of confidence. Like I said, Jack Grealish stayed. They got the win. They're, they spent a few quid, 6 points out of 3. They're in 4th place at the minute. I'm going to go for a draw on this one.
Oh no, I think for me, as I've kind of firmly already pinned my flag to the league mast, shall we say, Liverpool look pretty dominant, I think, over the last 3 games. And what's more, I think they're starting to get the rub of the green. It's that kind of sign of champions. Mane could have easily been sent off last night for the elbow on Kieran Tierney.
Definite red card.
It wasn't, but it wasn't really a talking point in the game.
I see what you mean there, actually. And yeah, there's something in what you say, because even Liverpool's 3rd goal last night, when you look at that, we've talked a lot about the handball rule. Jota kind of like controlling that on his chest. On another day, another referee, another VAR says that touched his whatever it needs to touch these days. The bicep, I suppose, would probably be enough. Wouldn't have been beyond the realms that got chalked off. And I wonder if you're right there about just that aura of champions somehow. Just where things start to go right and it becomes, we talked before about self-fulfilling or self-perpetuation. Yeah, I wonder if you might be something on that. And hope that's true, Fino. I hope you're right.
I love your pronunciation of Jota, Kev. Very, very cultured, very Portuguese. Joe, help me out here. Villa win?
No, I think we shouldn't forget that. So Villa have won 2 games, but they've played Fulham and Sheffield United, who are the 2 bottom teams in the league, who have both played 3 games and lost 3 games. So we probably shouldn't get too carried away with, Villa. This is the first team who they're playing who are in form. So I can't see anything other than a Liverpool win.
Yeah, boring Liverpool. Leicester sit top of the league along with Liverpool and Everton all on 9 points. Aston Villa in 4th on 6. A little bit of transfer news just come in earlier on. The will he, won't he, we've been saying it for the last few weeks. Sancho to Man United. Marco Reus has come out and said that Sancho is staying for one more year. That's a massive blow, surely.
Yeah, well, I think I've been really, really confused with this one because Borussia Dortmund came out ages ago, weeks ago, and said he's not going. But it seems to be the British media haven't believed that and said there's still a chance. There was never any chance, I don't think. I think as soon as Borussia Dortmund said Sancho is not going, the manager said he's not going, Sancho himself said he's not going. So for me, that was dead and buried weeks ago. So I'm a bit confused that one's still in the news. Maybe he will sign tomorrow and that would just be completely redundant. But for me, that one was completely dead and buried.
We would find out in the next 24 hours. It looks like they're going to sign Telles, the defender from Porto, as well. Mm-hmm. Everton and Leicester are both linked with Kurt Zouma.
He's a strong, dominant centre-back. I mean,
who Lampard starts, right?
I know that he's had some injury issues, and so maybe he doesn't feel like he can trust him for a full season. It might also be that these teams are willing to pay over the odds with regards to how Lampard values him, and he's thinking this is a quick way to get some cash in, and maybe he brings in a top quality loan deal or a piece of the puzzle that he's been having his eye on for a while.
Yeah, Tottenham linked with a defender from Milan, Inter Milan, Skriniar, Slovakian centre half. They're also linked with Anton Rudiger from Chelsea. Sheffield United look like they're going to seal the deal for Brewster for 17 million from Liverpool. Would you rather send him out on loan, Kev?
A lot of people have been talking about that. I suppose if he's not going to get a game and there's the buyback clause, it makes a little bit of sense for Liverpool because they get some cash in, and probably doesn't make any difference because, looking at the team, he's probably not going to play that often, certainly not going to start. And I suppose it depends a little bit whether Klopp wants to keep Divock Origi. I suspect he does. He's almost like having a lucky charm around the place, isn't he, Divock Origi? Just that ability to pop up in the right place at the right time. So it sounds really weird. It sounds odd when he's a player who they admire so much. But yeah, if there's that buyback clause, yeah, I suppose why not?
Yeah, I mean, like if he does, for example, go to Sheffield United, bang in 30 goals, end up at Real Madrid for 100 million, wouldn't that be poetic for Liverpool? Speaking of poetic, our in-studio poet here at the Irishman, Englishman, Scotsman Football Podcast, Kev, has got another treat in store for us.
Yeah, well, thought I'd try and do the same again, so let's see how it goes. Autumn is here, it's the end of September, and Jesus, round 3 was a week to remember. Liverpool, Leicester and Everton clear, Chelsea fight back while Man City pay dear. The rules on handball became ever more murky, but the drama's unreal, the results downright quirky. A 5-2, a 3-3 and still no 0-0, just controversy, luck and insane feats of skill. Leicester stay top after fleet Jamie Vardy made City's back line look like Laurel and Hardy. Okay, that's just a rhyme, a jokey assessment, but Pep really is after more reinvestment. Add Diaz to Joao Cancelo and Danilo, Walker and Stones buying back Angelino, Aymeric Laporte, Nathan Ake and Mendy. I think you'll agree it's got pretty damn spendy. The media say it's a cool $500 million on a defence that in my quite humble opinion still needs a leader, a talisman like a Vincent Kompany, a Virgil van Dijk. The latter outstanding in Liverpool's win over Arsenal at Anfield where Jota stroked in to clinch a 3-1 for a team at their peak. Mane just blissful, the pressing unique. And sure, you can see Arsenal are getting better, the credits deserved for Mikel Arteta, but the Londoners who can be really excited are the fans of much maligned West Ham United. The Hammers produced a resounding display, 4-0 against Wolves, Jared Bowen held sway, a performance of brio and imagination despite David Moyes' enforced isolation. And what about Everton? Well, they rode again as Palace succumbed to a ludicrous pen. And if I've had the odd rant here, here's just one more. What the hell was so wrong with the old handball law? It used to be simple. You needed intention. Ball against hand meant non-intervention. Now any slight contact with hand spells the worst. Defenders must fear that they're mortally cursed. At Brighton, United made off with the win. It was after the whistle to Maupay's chagrin. To be fair, that Panenka felt like tempting fate, and the karma was instant, the punishment great. At Tottenham, it felt like the final straw, a dire decision, a Newcastle draw. But credit to Bruce for his honest summation, and FIFA reversed this dumb interpretation.
Absolutely brilliant stuff once again, Kev. You're listening to the Irishman, Englishman and Scotsman Football Podcast. That's all for this week, folks. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, like and follow on Spotify and the rest of the social media platforms. Kev, take a bow.
Thank you very much. Virtual.
Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Fino, I got to say, this is a sad goodbye. This is the last time we're doing the show live with Fino in studio. So we just want to say thanks a million for everything. And of course, you're not going anywhere. He won't be sitting beside me anymore. But Fino, thanks a million, man. And safe travels back to Bonnie, Scotland.
Cheers, thank you. Yeah, I've had a bit of feedback that my Scottish accent isn't Scottish enough. So maybe being back in Edinburgh will toughen it up a bit.
Come on, hone it.
I've actually been told it was too posh. Posh Scottish now. Anyway, guys, thanks a million, and hope you enjoyed the show. Enjoy the games, and we'll see you all next Tuesday. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to hear more of our podcasts, please click on the red subscribe button on the bottom right-hand side. Thank you.